Hey guys, this is Matthew Scott again, and welcome to my boring desktop. Today I'm going to be showing you some features of Edius 6.5, which is due to be released very soon. It's very exciting, and I'll show you one of the most exciting things about it. But before we do that, I'm just going to put this in the bin here and press OK. And now let's double click on Edius 6.5. So one of the most amazing things about 6.5 is this splash screen. You'll notice it's much sexier, but also this edit anything. So edit anything is one of Edius's key points, the fact that it edits anything you throw at it, and that's true. And let me show you one cool thing about that, especially since I've just purchased my own Red camera. I can now edit Red natively. So that's just one of the new cool things, but some other little things are sort of under the hood improvements, which are really important and massive changes as far as I'm concerned. And one of them is the ability to open a project, a large project, very quickly. So for example, we're going to be working with this Edius NAB 2012 project, and let me just show you the properties of that project. If I just go to my hard drive here and right click on that and go properties, you'll see that it contains files up to about 100 gigabytes, which is a lot. So if you're working on a, say, a relatively long short film, or just big projects in general, and you have a lot of footage, previous versions of Edius would chug and take quite a long time to open. But now if you just count with me, open 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go, and bang, we're in. We're ready to start editing, and you can see down here that Edius is actually doing things in the background. So this is great because it means that Edius now does things that it used to do in the foreground to slow us down. It actually puts them aside to the background, which is great because we can start editing straight away. And you can see here that is entirely true. So let's have a look at some other cool things that Edius 6.5 has improved on. If we go to settings, project settings, we'll be able to see a lot more of what's available to us. So at the moment, we're having a look at the current project settings, and if I just click change current, we can go through some of these cool changes. So one of the biggest changes, and this is really exciting for me, especially because I do a lot of color work, is the fact that Edius now supports 10-bit and works in a 10-bit color space. So you might be thinking, hey, I remember seeing 10-bit in previous versions of Edius, which is true, but it was really in its infancy because we were just getting the new HQX format, which is a 10-bit codec, which is excellent, and Edius supported that. However, it never used to work in a 10-bit space in terms of color, but now it does. Now this 8-bit to 10-bit increment might only seem like two little numbers, but let me assure you, it's a massive benefit to Edius and anyone who's looking to get the best quality from their NLE on input and output. Speaking of input and output, we also have the ability now to import and export video with an alpha channel, so that's really powerful stuff. It's just great that we're not limited in any way, and that's the way Edius is pushing forward. Just no limitations and maintaining that speed and a powerful workflow. So some other things that are really cool are this resampling method. Edius now allows us to choose a resampling method based on the type of resampling we need. This is really, really cool, and it's a feature that's usually only available in high-end transcoding software, but now we can do it on a per-clip basis. Maybe you're familiar with using Photoshop and resizing images in Photoshop. You've seen things like best for reduction or best for enlargement. Well, now we have those similar algorithms to choose from within Edius, and that's on a per clip basis as well. Or we can set it as an overall project setting here as well. But I'll get into this stuff in more detail. So Edius 6.5 also has the ability to choose custom frame sizes. I mean, this was available in a previous version of Edius, but the fact that we can choose, say, for example, 4096 by 2160, which is 4K cinema resolution, means that it really is ready to edit at a cinema grade, and that's all thanks to our new 10-bit color processing. But the beauty of this is, and the fact that we can really utilize this now, especially myself since I own my own Red camera, is that I can import Red files natively straight to my timeline. So let's go over all this stuff and get started. I'm just going to change this back to 1920 by 1080, press OK. And guys, we will be changing project settings a lot during this demonstration. So I just want to show you, one, we can obviously just go up to settings and go to project settings and change them here using change current settings. But what we could do as well is just create new presets based on the settings that we like, just so it's a simple matter of clicking on a preset that we've already created. So we'll just quickly go over that. So if I go to settings, system settings, and then we go to project preset, you'll notice I have two presets created here already, but I can just simply click on a new preset here, and I can call this, for example, 4K 23, or let's just call it 24p. Yeah, and that'll do. So that's our description, and we can always give that a cool little icon. So maybe 4K looks like, what do we got up here? Maybe one of these ones. So like we'll go grey for 4K, and we'll press OK. So next up we want to change the video preset, and it actually doesn't matter what we choose because we're going to customize it anyway. And the audio preset will go 48 kHz to channel, and we're going to change that to a custom frame size of 4096 by 2160, and we're going to make that pixel aspect ratio 1:1, and we'll make that 2398, and we want that at 10-bit, and we don't need 24-bit audio for this one. Make our overscan size 0, and we'll change the resampling method. I actually like to leave it on fast and sharp, and then I just change it on a per clip basis, and we'll go through that a bit later as well. And I generally don't like working with VA tracks. You can set this up however you like. We'll choose our render format, which is, I'm going to go with Canvas HQX Standard, which is perfect for what we need. Press OK, and now you can see we have a new preset in here. And what we could also do now is make a 1080p version of this one. So I can just copy that preset, and now if I click on this one, choose Modify, and we can call this 1080 24p, and we can maybe choose a slightly different icon, maybe make a green one for that, and then everything else stays the same except this frame size and aspect ratio, so we'll press OK to that. So now these two are sort of hand in hand, and that's what that's what I will be changing a lot during this demonstration. So if I press OK there, go to settings, project settings, now you can see I can just choose them from this list, so that's really handy as well. First of all, I want to talk about that 10-bit, because to me that's the most exciting thing, the fact that we can work in color in 10-bit and process color in 10-bit, because you know how I feel about color. I love the stuff, especially in Edius. Alright, so let's have a look at an example of what 10-bit actually does. I have a film here that I shot called Saving the Bacon, written and directed by Ryan Thomas. Cool little film which will be available to watch soon, hopefully. Top 25 at Tropfest, mind you. I thought we did pretty well. Anyway, so let's have a look at this clip here. I specifically want to show you this shot because when you're working in an 8-bit color space, you run into problems. Now, keep in mind that this was shot with a Canon 5D Mark II, and as standard, a 5D Mark II records 8-bit video with quite a limited color space of 420 as well. But the beauty is that Edius is actually up-converting that color space, working in a new color space without us even knowing, simply just because we've gone settings, project settings, and changed that quantization bitrate to 10-bit. See, we don't have to transcode into a new codec to access that extra interpolated information. Now let me show you what a bonus that really is. So for example, I chose this shot deliberately because it has a very soft, gradual light covering this back wall. Now you may have seen this whenever you're trying to color grade a sky or underwater footage, you'll see what's called banding. Now let me show you exactly what that means. Before I do any changes to this image, I'm just going to go settings, project settings, and I'm going to change it back to 8-bit. Now straight away we don't really see much difference because in 8-bit footage looks great unless you change it, okay? So this is the thing here. And in a lot of situations, especially if it's professional use, you do want to add at least some contrast or some color to your image to really get the most out of it. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to double click the YUV curve, and let's just make a slightly larger screen so we can really see what's happening here. So within our YUV curve now, I'm just going to adjust the luminance values. And what hopefully you can see with this screen recording, because I certainly can, you can see what's called banding on that back wall. And by banding, I mean you can see bands of color, bands of brightness. You can see the steps. That's not cool. To me, it's like a form of posterization. And the quality of this image is seriously deteriorated just simply because we've added a contrast curve. Now, let's see what happens if we play with this in a 10-bit color space. I'm just going to press OK here, and just watch with me this background and watch these bandings just simply disappear. If we go settings, project settings, change current settings. Actually, let's just make this as out of the way so we can really see it happen. And if we go here and we change that to 10-bit and press OK, there we go, they've disappeared. So what that means is that we actually have a lot more information to play with. So how much more information, you might ask? Well, the difference on paper from 8-bit to 10-bit is only 2 digits, right? But really what it is 4 times more information per channel. What that means is, in an 8-bit realm of color and brightness, you have 254 levels of brightness. In a 10-bit color space, you have over 1,000. So that's 4 times as much information, which means the gradual steps between the brightest and darkest part of your image is now 4-fold. You have access to 4 times as much color information, even if the original source was recorded in 8-bit. So this is a massive step. This is huge, and it might only seem like a small number, like I said, but it really means big things for color, quality, and just the final output. It really puts Edius in a professional realm, and that's awesome. So more on 10-bit, we have over here a list of filters, and you can see that some of the filters have a little blue exclamation mark next to them. And what that means is that those filters aren't actually supported by the 10-bit workspace as yet. So Edius is headed in the right direction, but not all filters are available in 10-bit. But the good thing is, all the important ones are. The ones we use for serious color correction all work in a 10-bit color space, so that's awesome. So while we're talking about 10-bit as well, I want to delve into color a little bit deeper, and I want to show you the advantages of using native RED files. Now, the fact that we can import RED files directly is so amazing. It means we don't have to transcode footage. And if any of you are familiar with working with RED before, transcoding R3Ds is quite a lengthy process without additional hardware. So all of these clips have been imported directly into Edius, straight from my hard drive with no transcoding. And you saw how quickly I opened that project before. You can see I'm just scrubbing through 4K footage with not a problem at all. But you can see that the resolution is quite low. Now, this isn't generally Edius's way of working. Their philosophy is stay in full resolution always. But hold on a second, technology's jumped quite a lot in the past 12 months. 4K is the new buzzword, and all cameras are going 4K. So we need to wait until our computer systems catch up with the cameras. So in the meantime, we have the ability to still edit this stuff without having to transcode, and that's really powerful, saves a lot of time. But we can, if we did have a powerful computer, I mean, this is only a first generation i7 laptop, we can go to settings, system settings, and if we go to importer, choose RED, we can actually choose a preview quality of 1:1, which is full resolution 4K, and you can see the crispness of this image here, which is still in RAW. We haven't actually affected that at all. But the point is that we have the ability to change that resolution just to increase system performance if needed. And let's face it, for an edit, you don't really need to be able to see the details in his skin. We're basically editing something based on shapes and movements. So for me, it's a great step forward, and I'm really happy that Edius is supporting cameras like RED. So let's have a look at what we can do with these files. And before I do, let's just take a quick look at the specifications of one of these files. So for example, let's open this one here. So I just right click and choose open. We're going to open this with RED's free software called Red CineX. And this is going to allow us to change the metadata in the image. And you can see here that I actually have changed it previously to a super warm Kelvin. The beauty of RAW is though that we have access to white balance, ISO and other metadata. So that stuff's not burnt into the image like normal cameras. So the fact that this is RAW is just super powerful. Anyway, enough about that. I came in here because I wanted to show you that we're working with a 4096 by 2160 file. That's massive. We're working at an 8:1 compression, which is, that's quite CPU intensive. Plus, each one of these files has 16 bits of information per channel. That is massive. Remember how big the jump from 8-bit to 10-bit was? Just imagine what 16 bits is. So the fact that we can work with these files natively is just huge. So I'm just going to exit Red CineX, go back to Edius. I'm not going to save that. Now I'm going to show you some color correction techniques, but specifically we're going to have a look at one of these RED files and see how far we can push it. So at the moment, Edius is downscaling this footage into a 1080p project on the fly, which is pretty impressive in itself. But what we can do is actually go back to a 4K project. So we'll go project settings, and we can change this at any time. Go change current settings. You can go to custom and go 4096 by 2160 and press OK. And nothing seems to have changed, but in fact, if we go to the layout tool, you can see that we're at 93%. Let's make that 100%. And now we're full 4096 by 2160. That's a lot of resolution. Actually, while we're here, it's interesting to note that the fact that we can work in such high resolutions means that we have so much flexibility, especially if we have a source of 4K. I can actually change my project settings back to 1920 by 1080. Let me show you something really cool. So if we click on our image, go to Layouter, and have a look at the stretch now, we're actually only looking at half the resolution that's available to us. So we can actually stretch that to 100%, and now we can reframe our image, and we're not losing any resolution whatsoever. This means that we can animate camera moves with keyframes here in the Layout tool, or we can just simply reframe things as if we had two cameras, a close and a wide. That is just really powerful stuff. And the fact that Edius can do that is just, it's phenomenal. So I'm just going to reset that layout back to original size and go settings, project settings, and we're going to work in 4K because I really want the most out of this color example that I'm going to show you. So 2160, 4096, press OK. Now let's get into this color stuff. Now, first of all, I'd like to examine a scene, and to me, I can see that this scene needs a lot of work. We can really bring it to life. I mean, when I shot this on the day, it was a lot warmer looking than this. To me, this seems quite cool, and it wasn't cold. It was really warm, and yes, we have a strong backlight here. We have some blown highlights on the grass. We're going to tackle all these problems a bit later, but the image also looks quite flat, and if we have a look at our histogram here, you can see that we actually don't have a black point at all, so we need to fix these things, and we're going to do that right now. But first off, the first thing I noticed is my brother over here, his skin seems to be a little bit more pale than this guy in the middle, so I just want to warm that skin up a little bit. And one really quick way of doing that is just to grab the mask tool, drag that on. Now if I'm going a little too fast for you, check out Vimeo MTS Films, and you should see a whole bunch of tutorials that goes through this stuff in great detail, and a lot slower as well. Basically what we're doing now is just drawing a quick mask around my brother's skin, and we're going to soften the edges of that mask by say 300 pixels. And on the inside of that mask, I'm going to choose a three-way color corrector and just straight away just jump for the mid-tones. It's going to push warmth into that. And we don't want to push too much. The beauty of color correction is it's all very subtle changes. So I've really only changed that quite subtly, but his skin looks a lot warmer now, looks more neutral compared to this guy in the middle. He doesn't look sick anymore. So next up I am going to add that black point. So I might just turn on my waveform, and I'm going to go to YUV curve and drop that on here. Now with my YUV curve, here is my black point. So you can see I can adjust that just by dragging it around. What I'm going to do is just drag this black point down some. See down here, 0 represents black, so now I'm actually hitting a black point. And these black points I'm talking about are these shadows under his leg, the shadows under his arm, and this wallet on the table. Basically they're pure black now and they weren't before. So we've added a nice contrast to the scene. Just want to bring my midtones back a little bit, and we're getting there slowly. So there's two very minor adjustments, but trust me, we're on the way to success. So next up I'm going to go color balance, and I just want to increase the color of the entire scene. So we're going to go color balance, and I'm just going to increase the chroma by say 11, and now you can see it's a lot more saturated and it's looking a lot friendlier. But one thing I don't like is this grass. It seems too fluorescent, too overly saturated. So how do we combat that? Well, we need to make a selective change. We can do that a number of ways, but I'm going to use the chrominance filter to achieve that. So if we go to chrominance and we double click chrominance, now once again, if I'm going too fast or you don't understand what I'm doing, make sure you check out those tutorials. I'm enabling my vector scope so I can see the values in my scene, and you can see that there is quite in fact a lot of green. So what I'm going to do is just expand, it's going to expand this selection tool. It's going to move it over into my green, and as you watch on the right hand side, if we move this over, you'll see the more green I select, it's actually selecting every part of green in the image. Now you'll see these little diamonds on the side. If I move my mouse so they go yellow, I have these softening handles. I can introduce soft and gentle shades leading outside of green. So as I move that around, here we're starting to get the green that I want, making sure not to go into yellow too much, because then you'll see I'm selecting his hair and their skin, but I don't want to do that. We really just want to limit this to the greens only. So that's looking pretty good. So there's my key. So if we turn the key off, now we can go to the inside filter inside that key. So on the inside filter, I'm going to choose once again three-way color corrector. So let's go to the setup of that. And what we can do is just find those midtones and highlights and just drop the saturation. But not too much, because, you know, it's still green. We want it to be green. It's just not too green. You can also drop the contrast, just to back those highlights off a little bit, just so the grass isn't too distracting. So there we've done that pretty quickly and easily. I'm going to press OK. Now next up, the scene is very heavily backlit, and we didn't have much fill in the front because there was only a caravan sort of reflecting the light. But you know, we really need to use a reflector or some lights, but what we're going to do is just use a mask to really sort of separate our guys from the background. So I'll grab mask and just going to draw a big circle around this guy. And if we just shrink that down and rotate it a little bit, and I just press Control C, Control V, just to duplicate that mask and move it over here. I'm going to soften the edges of that by about, say, 700 pixels, and we're softening both sides of the mask. And on the inside of that filter, I'm going to choose sharpness, because I really want these guys to pop. I want them to sing. So sharpness, let's press OK and increase sharpness by quite a lot. I'm going to go 32. Now, generally speaking, increasing sharpness by 33 is a hell of a lot, especially if you're working in a standard definition project. But remember, we're working with 4096 horizontal pixels. That's a lot of pixels, which means we can add more sharpening. And remember, we're talking about 10-bit. This sharpness is also being worked in a 10-bit space, which means our sharpness is more precise, and we get less artifacting and a much nicer result. So there's the inside of this mask being sharpened. On the outside, I'm going to add a YUV curve. And I'm just going to try and drop the exposure a little bit, not too much, just in the highlights mostly. And hopefully what that's going to do is just, you know, help sort of refine and bring out these guys in the front. So that's looking pretty good. I'm going to press OK. Okay, so next up, what else have we got here? Next up, what I'm going to do is the whole image itself is a little bit blue. I'm just going to warm that up. So three-way color corrector. I maybe should have done this in the beginning, but I've just noticed it now. So I'm just going to push warmth just into that slightly. Just warm the whole scene up a little bit. And maybe that was a bit much. And press OK. Now finally what I'm going to do is place a gradient over the top of this image, just to really warm it up even more so. But I don't want to warm up the guys too much. Their skin's looking good, everything else is looking good. So what I'll do is just zoom out a little bit here, grab my pen tool and just draw a massive mask around these guys. And I'm going to soften the edge of that mask by, say, 800 pixels. And once again, I'll place a filter inside of that. I don't know if you can hear the fan in my laptop going crazy. But yeah, there's a lot of steps here, but they're all sort of subtle steps. And hopefully they yield a beautiful result in the end. So we're going to push quite a lot of warmth up here, as if there's like a warm sunset in the background. And I think that's going to help us a lot. I might even push a bit more. And press OK. And finally press OK one more time. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just duplicate this clip, and I'm going to delete all the filters from the top layer. And if we just switch this on and off, I'll go to full screen mode. You can see that with some subtle changes, I've gone from you know, quite a cool sort of raw look to a much nicer, much warmer and more beautiful scene. So Edius's power has always been there, but now the fact that we get to work in a 10-bit color space with 16-bit raw files from a Red camera, we really do have a lot more power, a lot more precision to create beautiful, stunning looks just with subtle changes. So I've probably already gone over time, but bad luck. I just want to show you and you know everything that's cool about Edius 6.5. And all right, let's just jump into it. So next up, I want to show you. Let's just quickly have a look here. Settings, project settings. And what we want to look at here is the video plus alpha channel import and export plus the resampling methods. Now these things are really cool. So make sure we have that selected. YCBCR plus alpha, which is just video plus alpha. Press OK. Now what this means is we can import and export things with alpha channels. Now what's an alpha channel? I've explained this before on previous tutorials, but let me just quickly go over it again. So if we go to, for example, here's another cool film that I'm shooting or just finished shooting, Only the Young Die Good, director, writer Dominic Deacon. Been a lot of fun. Shot on 5D Mark II again, and what we're going to do is just quickly fix this image up a little bit. But what I want to show you is alpha channels. So if we go to a clip that actually has an alpha channel built into it, like this smoke charge, for example, what we can do is just drop that on our timeline and put it above this clip, and you can see, in fact, it does have an alpha channel because we can see transparency around it. So that's proof that it has an alpha channel. Alpha channel just means transparency channel. So a clever sort of way to use that is we can put that underneath our clip. Now we can't actually see it, but if we go Effect, and we go down to Track Matte, and we say, hey Edius, make this top track use the transparency built into the bottom track, and create a cutout. So at the moment it's using luminosity to do that, but if we double click on the Track Matte properties and change it to alpha channel, you can see a much crisper cutout, and now we have this really cool look. We could use that for a trailer or whatever, and let's just prove that there is transparency there around that. So we could put, say, behind that, let's just put this smoke. So now you can see the smoke is behind that, and everything's looking pretty smoky and pretty cool. And yeah, so the beauty is though that we can actually export that with an alpha channel. So this is something we could never do with Edius before. So what I'm going to do is just mark an in point there, and I'm going to mark an out point there, then go File, Export, Print to File. And we're going to choose Canopus HQX, making sure we have export between in and out ticked because we just want this section, plus enable conversion and drop down advanced because we need to actually tell Edius, hey, make sure you include the alpha channel. So we'll click on that and we'll go export. We're going to call this onlytheyoungdiegood.com.au alpha and press OK. So that shouldn't take too long. And what that's doing is exporting to, you know, a native codec for Edius HQX, which means we're going to get real-time performance and extremely high quality. So we can delete that stuff now. And here is our clip here. And you know what? It just looks exactly the same, but the beauty is it actually has its own alpha channel. And that's so cool. So let me just prove that it does by, we can just grab some random footage, put it underneath, and now you can see, boom, it has its own alpha channel. Pretty cool. So being able to export alpha channels like that is super powerful. Edius these days is really pushing things in the right direction and really trying to make this a super powerful professional editor, you know, for high-end stuff, not just quick stuff. So although it is quick, it is super powerful too. And a lot of these issues and needs of editors are being addressed. So that's what I love about it. So let's just have a look at the resizing method. Now this stuff's crazy, right? And the fact that we have this within Edius is so cool. Let's go back to saving the bacon, and I need to find something with a hard edge. Actually, no, let's stick in Only the Young Die Good. Maybe, yeah, maybe this shot here. There's some nice contrast here, and I'm just going to drop that on my timeline. And you'll notice I've got some ghost frames here. That's because Edius is interpolating by default my footage to match the frame rate of my project. So if we go to settings, project settings, you'll notice I'm on 23.98 as a frame rate. However, this video I recorded at 25p. So what I might do is just change the view of my bin and make sure I can see the details. My frame rate is here. You can see, yep, this one's 23.98, this one's 23.98, but these clips are 25. So if I highlight those and just go 23.98, now Edius will conform those and play them back slower. Alright, so I might just open, no, let's go this one, let's go this one. So I really want to show you this resizing and how cool it is. So go to the information tab. Now when you resize something, this is really useful for example, going from high definition down to standard definition. But it also means that if you ever have to enlarge something just to, you know, fix a horizon, actually maybe that's a better idea. If we go here and have a look at my horizon, you'll notice it's not straight. So what I'll do is drop that on the timeline, and I'll go information, and I'm going to rotate my image so it is a straight horizon. So that's much more straight. But you'll notice now I actually have to enlarge my image so that I get rid of these black borders. So when I do that, one, I'm losing resolution, but that's you know, because I stuffed up. But two, I'm also introducing artifacts because of the resizing. Now in previous versions of Edius and in other editing software, we don't have the option to choose how it resamples, how it resizes, but now we do. And we can do it straight here on a per clip basis. So this resampling method is currently pointing to the resampling method built into our project, but we can always change that to Lanczos high quality. Now I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but just a bit of history about this dude. Cornelius Lanczos was an absolute legend who figured out this cool stuff. A Hungarian dude, and that's about all I know. But anyway, this thing was named after him. It's been used for a long time in the video and stills industry, and it's just a really good way to resize things and make them keep their quality. So we're going to change that. Have you ever noticed when you've gone from high definition footage down to standard definition footage, you'll see things like jaggy lines in power lines and things like that? Or like here, for example, you might see what's called aliasing. The beauty of Lanczos is that it eliminates that. It smooths out that aliasing, and that's what's so cool. Now let's just expand this a hell of a lot more. And before I do that, I'm just going to add a little bit more contrast to this scene, just so we can really see what I'm talking about here. So we'll just add some blacks, increase the whites. Alright, so if we go to the layout tool, and we just zoom out here to say 10%, I'm going to expand this a hell of a lot, like say about that much. And let's have a look here at maybe this line here, and I'll just expand it even more. Alright, so at the moment it's using Lanczos, I'm just going to call it Lanczos. At the moment it's just using Lanczos high quality, which is probably the best option we have. But now I want to change this resampling method, and I want to show you the difference it actually makes. But to do that, we really need a comparison. So what I'm going to do is duplicate this clip now, so there's two identical ones. Now the bottom one, if we double click on that, is using Lanczos 3, high quality. And the top one, what I want to do is change that to bilinear, fast and smooth. If we press OK, and we can turn each one on and off. So bilinear, fast and smooth, you can see has less detail, here it is here, and more aliasing. It actually introduces noise and artifacts. So if we change to Lanczos 3, you can see much more detail, and we've smoothed out that aliasing. So that's really cool that we can actually choose that. That is showing you what it's really doing under the hood. So some of these like average, fast and sharp, let's press OK, and you really see a massive difference here. So here's Lanczos 3 high quality, and here's fast and sharp. You can see it's covered in pixels, and yeah, just the quality is not there. So the fact that we can choose that resizing method is just a huge bonus, and another way to get professional, high quality imagery out of Edius. Anyway guys, that probably wraps it up. Probably way too long. Thanks for sticking around, if you have. But yeah, so we should just wrap it up with a few tips when working with these new features. And one of them is performance actually does decrease when you're working, for example, in a 10-bit color space, or when you're working with, say, high quality resizing. The idea is, and the beauty of Edius is, that you can always change that mid-project. So you can change that to 8-bit, change that to bilinear, fast and smooth, press OK, and then you're going to get back the performance that you're used to. But obviously when you want to start working with color, then we go back to settings, project settings, change that back to 10-bit, and voila, it's just a flick of a switch. Then we have that quality back right at the end. And quite similarly, if you're working with 4K footage, you actually get better performance if you work in a 1920 by 1080p project, even though your footage is in 4K. So remember that you can always switch it back to 4K at the end. So this is the beauty of Edius and the flexibility that we have. And to me, little things like this just really set Edius apart. So we've covered a few things here that are new with 6.5, and there's definitely more features, but to me these are the most important. I don't want you to look at this 8-bit, 10-bit thing and think, you know, that's not really an improvement, because seriously, it's massive. And let's just not forget, the Final Cut X is only 8-bit, alright? You know, the fact that we can choose these resizing methods is like, it's just new to an NLE realm, and it's a big deal. And also, you know, Edius is up with the times, up with the latest cameras, including Red. But this next release really addresses a lot of performance and compatibility issues under the hood. So a lot of work has been done by the engineers to get these things happening. So really powerful stuff. Now I know this demonstration wasn't really a tutorial and I flew through some things. I just wanted to show you some of the new features available to 6.5. I look forward to doing some new crazy tutorials. I got a whole lot of cool new ideas in mind, and I got some cool new footage to play with as well, so looking forward to that. Yeah, so thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.